Okay. If we would all please direct our attention to Uncle Sam as he asks everyone to please turn off or silence your cell phone. Nice. Do I scroll down or up? Scroll up. Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Now, we've all been in a situation where we've been with someone or we've seen someone using technology when they should really be paying attention to someone else. So someone's texting in the back, actually over there, but that's okay. We forgive you. But really, in class, if you see someone browsing Facebook or at a baseball game, you see a father answer the phone. These are all cases of someone using technology irresponsibly. Unfortunately, technology has caused us to obstruct some of what used to be some social understandings between individuals, and has pretty significantly altered a lot of the way that we interact with each other, we interact with ourselves, and the world around us. So a quick story. I was out at dinner one time, and I saw a friend come to the restaurant with a girl that he had just started talking to, and they come and they sat next to us at the bar. And we talked to them for a minute or two, but pretty quickly they ended up getting on their cell phone. And they were watching something for roughly 45 minutes. I get up to leave and I asked them what they were doing. And the response was they were watching trailers to movies to decide where to go, which movie to go to on their next date. So they're spending their first date preparing for their second date. Of course, we can imagine what they do on the second date in the movie theater, reading Yelp reviews to decide which restaurant to go to on their third date. So it's a pretty cyclical cycle and a little bit counterproductive. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have been on this slide. I apologize. Right. So these, I'm sure we all notice a few anomalies in this case, and initially this incident sparked a frustration in me that I think is probably latent in all of us since the first time that we had a face-to-face conversation interrupted by a phone call or by a text message. And paradoxically enough, these anomalies or these oddities have actually become the norm as we accept technological interaction as being commonplace over social interaction. So back to the story. I'm sure we can all notice a few things that seem a little bit odd, out of place in the setting, and a few of these would be the breaking down of communication. We see a shirking of obligations. We see a decrease in attentiveness and a lack of general awareness for our misuse of technology.
So let's talk about communication. Does anyone know what communication is? Just a hand raise. Anyone? No one? Okay, no one at all. Yeah, okay. So according to the definition I looked up, communication is the imparting or the exchanging of information from one person to another. So as you might have noticed, when I asked you guys the question, I didn't actually give anyone the opportunity to answer. So it was unsuccessful communication. Luckily, you guys actually raised your hand, otherwise that would not work as well. So the thing that I want you to understand here is that successful communication is not necessarily just being able to project information outward, like you do when you post a Facebook message or a Twitter update. It's also the reciprocating or the receiving. Reciprocation is the act of doing or making something in return. So when I ask you a question, you reciprocate by giving me an answer. When I smile, you're supposed to smile back, or if you maybe frown, you're mad at me. When I shake your hand, you squeeze it back firmly. There's certain things that when you get, you give back. And so in successful communication, you have to be willing to exchange and to basically work together. Good conversationalism is something that's really important as well when it comes to communication. Has anyone ever tried to speak to a bad conversationalist?
Yes.
Do you have any examples or anything like that?
I don't know, just people when you feel like you're holding a conversation and they don't say anything.
Yeah, and the thing is, most of us are those people. in reality, when it comes to communication, many of us aren't actually well equipped to give back or to reciprocate. I know myself, I often have issues where I want to say what I want to say so badly that I'm just waiting for you to stop talking. And it gets to the point where we don't actually take care of each other. We don't actually really follow the obligations that we have. When we communicate, we're supposed to, of course, address the audience, but we're also supposed to take back. When it comes to this story here, with the two people standing here, as you can see, they are communicating on some level. Of course, she's probably texting people at home or maybe taking a picture to, slap on Instagram. and he's probably texting about how boring she is, or something like that. And so communication is happening on some level. There's impartation going on where they're projecting information outward, and perhaps someone is on the other end somewhere. However, what's being neglected here is the essential localized interpersonal interactions that they have. Not to say that you can't ever use technology in such a way to, project, information outward. But if you're standing next to someone for an extended period of time, it kind of is a good idea to maybe take some time, put your cell phone down, put your iPod or your iPad down, and just have a good conversation. When it comes to this sort of interaction, the problem is that we're marginalizing really essential and important aspects of everyday life, and we're actually losing skills that are actually really important to us. Because of this sort of thing being the norm, we're not good conversationalists. We don't know how to talk to people on the phone or in person. We need to textualize everything because that's the easiest way to get it understood, and that's a problem.
So there's also an issue with obligations. Every day, everything that we do is some form of a contract or an obligation with either ourselves or with other people, with groups of entire people. So whether you get in a car or you show up in class, you're automatically in a contract with other drivers, with police officers, with teachers, or with other students. And what technology seems to be doing is as it's coming saturating into our lives, it seems to be undermining these contracts. So it becomes part of the contract. So considering the date example again, typically, I mean, I don't want to claim that I'm any sort of authority on what dates should consist of, but I think that we would all probably agree that it has something to do with getting to know the person you're with, getting to know, most importantly, if you want to date them again. Not getting to know how your phone functions or which trailers you can access from the Wi-Fi at the restaurant. And unfortunately, this type of assault on contracts is not just in the date setting. So we have teachers who are expected to teach when at least half of the students are involved in some other conversation with a friend over the phone. Or we have drivers who someone's trying to change a lane, but the guy next to her is accelerating and decelerating sporadically because he's checking in before he's even gotten to where he's going. And these contracts that are being undermined bring us away from a certain social perspective that we have with other people, and consequently end up making us lose attentiveness to others and to the world around us. Exactly.
We've become so engaged with our technological devices that sometimes they take precedent over our real-world experiences. Going back to the dating example, these two aren't paying attention to each other, they're paying attention to the phone they're watching the movie trailers on. And these two are dating, right? So that means they at least like each other quite a bit, and they would prefer to spend time with each other rather than a lot of other people. Which just makes me wonder, what are their ideas of standard social interactions with other people? But these two aren't the only ones who have been affected with a lack of attentiveness. If we could just have a poll here, how many of you guys have either been on Facebook in class or texted just in any class? Yeah, exactly. So there's a huge amount. Right, so a huge amount, and what I would say is, in my experience at UF, is that it's a significant portion of people looking in my classes. I'll be in a lecture hall and I'll look at it, and I'll see one person on Facebook, another person playing a game. And we seem to have this obligation now where we need to read and respond to our text messages as fast as we can, even when we're in circumstances which do not allow it, especially in the case of driving. And we're told all throughout our life, don't drink and drive, don't drink and drive. And please, don't drink and drive. But also don't text and drive. There have actually been studies comparing the two, and texting and driving is actually even more dangerous. On average, it takes about 3 seconds of distraction for a driver to get into a crash. And on average, it takes about 5 seconds to check a text message. Which means that every time you check your phone, you have a possibility of crashing your car. AT&T came out with a documentary about texting and driving, and it was pretty sad of some of the experiences. There was one girl who who texted her sister, yeah, and her sister checked that text and she crashed her car and died. There was another man who looked down to his phone, and then when he looked up, there was a bicycle stuck in the window, and the cyclist also did not survive. So it's in moments where we're so engaged in our technology and that we're not focused on what's actually going on, and we're missing out on the real world. And this lack of attentiveness builds over time. You can start texting in a class just because it's very easy, and then you'll text another class because the professor's terrible and you're not going to learn anyway if you're paying attention. And so then you don't realize that there's something wrong with texting in classes because you do it all the time. And it's this lack of awareness that is the foundation of the problems of misuse of technology. Sorry, this is kind of... yeah, sorry. Out of curiosity, so has it ever happened to you guys? Like, I know, I really don't. Now I kind of look like a dick, but I realize now I didn't really mean to be rude. And out of curiosity, have you guys? Has that ever happened to you? Like, when you're texting, I don't know, you're on your iPad or something, and somebody's there, whatever, and you're doing this, and then all of a sudden, like, they're yelling at you, and then now you're offended, and you're telling them to back off. Why are you yelling at me? I'm not doing anything to you. And they're mad because you're being disrespectful. And then we get mad because they're yelling at us, but then we do it to other people too. And I know when my girlfriend is texting and she's not listening to me, I feel bad because who the hell is she even talking to? And, I mean, the way I see it is I kind of coined it as being plugged in. And sometimes being plugged in is really great. Like, I know, personally, I don't know what you guys, but I work like 30, 40 hours a week. I do school full time. Sometimes you just want to plug into your electronics, and before you know it, 8 hours has passed by. Maybe not that many, but next thing you know, it's 3 in the morning, and you're like, dude, I have to wake up in the morning. I have work. And so sometimes plugging in is good, though, because it de-stresses. But the problem is that it really starts to affect your social relationships. Yes. I'd just like to personally say that was not planned.
Take credit.
I think it's good if we don't take credit. Well, I understand how to do it. But yeah, so like when I think like Dylan's story, I don't even have your number. Come on, that'd be weird. But yeah, so like I think Dylan's story. Yeah, and what really gets me, one of my big pet peeves is that. For me, like I said, I'm really busy. I know all of you guys always talk about graduate students and all these things. You don't have time. So when you're busy, we like to be social, and we try to make time. But what I hate is when I make time with one of my friends. And I work most weekends, so that one weekend night I get off is I cherish. And when I go out and that person is like texting or they're talking to someone else, it blows my mind. So that I could have just plugged into my Xbox at home and played Halo for a while, de-stressed. Now I'm sitting here pissed off on my night off. And really what I see happens here is that there's been a shift in social paradigm where our lives are supplementing technology. When really technology should be supplementing our lives. We should be using it to enhance our experiences. So now instead of saying, oh man, I got this camera, I can take a great picture, we're saying, let me go find something to use my new camera. And we do that with all our technology. And really, the core of this, what it boils down to is a lack of awareness. Because what we need to differentiate really is the difference between malicious intentions and inadvertent technological misuses. And what I mean by that is, if I just pick up my phone because he's talking too much, and I say, oh yeah, I got this phone call, and I walk out, that's messed up. It's rude. I'm not really respecting him. I'm not listening, and I should be punished for that. But in a situation like that, that was inadvertent. She had no intentions. We know when nobody's mad at her because we're talking about this, but in other situations we get mad at her when really we shouldn't, because it's not on purpose. And in most cases, aside from the occasional, Grinch or evil-hearted person, whenever these things happen and we get into arguments or miscommunications about these technological misuses, we don't actually mean to do them, and we want to make it right. We want to explain that we want to try and improve. And we can't, because in just the same light that if you have an issue with a significant other or your parents, you go see a psychologist because you know something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. And the reason why people don't know what's wrong here is because we haven't established what it means to tech responsibly and the concept of tech responsibly. So if we can establish that, though, if we can raise awareness about this and let people know, it will make a difference. Right now, we can spit out solutions all day. Oh, do this to tech responsibly, do this. But when you do that, nobody really knows what you're talking about, and you don't get anywhere. But hopefully, if we can really establish what it is to tech responsibly, then we can begin to progress.
So what exactly do we mean by teching responsibly? Most importantly, it's really up to you to decide, because for every individual, their tech use and their supplementation of technology into their life is completely individual. So we can't necessarily tell a computer programmer to stop writing code and to pick up a pencil, and we can't tell your grandmother to stop writing you love letters and instead to send you an email with a bank transfer. It's okay. But there are a few key things that we think are relevant, not necessarily solutions, but ways to acknowledge irresponsible tech use. So the first of them is using technology as a supplement rather than a substitute to our daily lives. That's to say that your phone should help you contact your friend. It shouldn't become your friend. And your device should be an extension of you. You shouldn't be an extension of it. Thoreau said way before modern technology that man is becoming a tool of his tools, and we're saying let's make tools our tools again.
Who gets phone calls from Jesus? Oh, you do? Okay, cool. No, that's not the class. Who here gets a nickel every single time they successfully answer a text message in class without the teacher figuring it out? Hopefully no one. I want to know how you do that. The thing that we have to really realize here is that it's not that important. Your text messages can wait oftentimes. Of course, there are emergencies, things happen, but we need to really change our perspectives and think about these things differently. Until we realize that we can let certain things go, and that we should give priority to things that are more immediate and more important at the particular circumstance, we're not going to be successful individuals, because we're going to put things like spell check over the ability to actually practice and learn how to spell. I think I was talking to Alex, and he was telling me how there's programs, school programs out now where they don't actually emphasize the instruction of spelling for young students.
In a nutshell, I spoke to somebody, and not to go too far, but they told me that they went back home to visit their niece and nephew, and their little siblings, and they were helping them write Christmas cards to send to the family out of state. And they were writing, and they're terrible spelling, and they were in like 5th grade, but they couldn't spell things like please or receive for gifts, little simple things. And they asked, don't you learn this? And I said, and the person figured out, they found out that in some public schools now, they're not actually teaching spelling. They teach you the alphabet and they teach you words and vocabulary, but not actually spelling, because they assume that you're going to be using autocorrect or spell check. And truly, we all use it, and sometimes we type right over our typos because we just figure, it'll take care of it. But what happens when you want to write a love letter? Or what happens when you want to write something else? Now you're having physical miscommunication as a result of technological miscommunication without technology even being there.
We abbreviate important aspects of our life. Just like on your text message where you're writing a 3-sentence paragraph that's, like the one in the slide we had before, where it was BRB, green, light. We have moments in our life where we have to make certain decisions and put things as a priority. And of course, in situations like that, it's important that you just need to get the message out, so you abbreviate it, you let it go. But when you're in class, when you're talking to friends or family members, when you're spending quality time doing your schoolwork or with members of your family, you need to learn that there are going to be times where you just have to let that stuff go and realize that there are more important things than keeping up with your social pixel life. I know one thing that's actually interesting is the gaming industry is actually a really big player in this social issue today, because a lot of people are actually spending record levels of time on the computer logged in into alternate lives. Like people take their video game characters and actually give them precedence over their own lives. they don't go to exercise or to even eat or go to the bathroom for hours at a time because they're actually spending so much time logged in, rating, gaming. I personally love gaming, and I do spend a lot of time on the computer. So I know firsthand how many times people can literally be tempted to not do anything other than that. And so we just have to get to a point of maturity where we can regulate ourselves and be reflexive in our understanding of how we should go about solving these issues.
Now, when we're thinking of solutions, we realize that we shouldn't be prescriptive and that we couldn't be objective. However, we did come up with 10 quasi-imperatives that everyone should follow. And we call them the 10 Tech Commandments.
So, first one is honor thy non-digital self. Next one is thou shalt not make any tech device and idle. Thou shalt not browse Facebook in vain.
Thou shalt observe thy contract. Thou shalt call thy father and mother. Thou shalt not kill time online.
Thou shalt not commit adultery on thy social life by thy digital life. Thou shalt not text when spoken to. Thou shalt not endanger thy neighbor with thy tech use.
Last one is, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's device.
Or wife.
And we could about these really because I mean they're entertaining and stuff, and you know it's funny, but in reality they kind of hit close to home and they are really relevant. And you know maybe not in those extreme cases, but all of those, but I think we all can kind of recognize with. And the concern is if we really look at that, and even something as simple as that, just kind of becoming slightly more aware, we can begin to establish more genuine relationships with people and even with technology. And the beauty in that, really, and the message we want to leave you guys with today is that if we can begin to change our perspective on how we live our life and how we use our tools, we can hopefully, definitely learn to tech responsibly.